Welcome back to Monday Morning with Max and Mike. Today, we're going to talk about the birds and the bees, the flowers and the trees. It's all about sex today. Mike, thanks for joining me once again. Always a pleasure.
I will pretend to be an expert on the subject today, and don't come to me for any advice after this. I think we'll be safe.
Academically, I'm not very well versed, but I have done a lot of field research on the subject.
Yeah, I'd have to say I've done the same. Quite a bit. Hardly academically trained at all in any of it. I mean, I took some biology classes in high school and college, but
There's a lot of stuff you can read about it, but I don't think any amount of reading would prepare you for the real deal.
so how old are you, Max?
I feel like that's rather inappropriate to ask, as I am a lady.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, at your age, what has been one of the biggest
What's that supposed to mean at my age?
at your age? At your age, what's been the most like pivotal thing in your sex life? The thing that you changed or learned or whatever, where there was a big opening, and it's like, oh, okay, this isn't what I thought it was. This is much better now.
I mean, there have to have been a few. I can remember like seeing pictures of girls in magazines for like perfume ads and shit like that, where it's overtly sexual. And I'm like, oh man, I really think that's cool. And then I remember when I went to, when I was in high school, a friend of mine on the soccer team, I went over to his house and he's like, hey, you got to check this out. And it was a pornographic video. And I was like, wow, I really think this is cool. This is really awesome.
Was
Like,
it
I didn't know
VHS,
exactly. What's that? No, no,
VHS,
no,
or DVDs
no,
out?
no. We had the internet when I was, I guess like
Oh no,
14
man.
or something
When
like
I
that.
was in high school, I remember trying to pull up Playboy.com, Pamela Anderson, and just watching the screen. Like, just every few seconds, I'd get like a centimeter of more skin, and then just crossing my fingers so that it fills out before my family gets home and
Wow.
walks in the office. And then just as I'm about to see a nipple, I can
Yeah.
hear the car pull up, and I got to exit out. I'm like, jeez,
Yeah.
clear the history. I learned how to clear the history early.
You're just like begging mom to get a better internet connection.
There was no better. We were maxed out, and that's what it
That was
was.
it.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean that's a pivotal experience. You start to notice the fine young ladies. I spent most of my teenage years really putting ladies up on this pedestal because I've always found men to be kind of dirty and like rough, which is the opposite of what I like about ladies, at least the perception. Of course, ladies are also quite dirty, come to find out as an adult. Uh, so I was a little standoffish. Um, I don't know. I think a lot of it is just getting comfortable with yourself. And we could make some distinctions as far as sexually and then like solo sexually. I think one of the things I think would be cool to do today would be to have a distinction between ejaculation, sex, whether with a partner or solo, and pornography, because they're all three different things. And if you play with Tantra at all, which is delayed ejaculation, that's a super generalization. I know Tantra is a little bit more than that. But I think distinguishing between those is really helpful. And just having that wider frame of reference has been really helpful in all my relationships, even understanding the difference between friendship and romance and cohabitation, because it's really different to have a romantic relationship with someone versus living with somebody. You can have one without the other, or you can have both, but you got to have that expectation set out clearly ahead of time for all parties.
So where do we want to start? I mean, it sounds like we already started on the pornography front. That was both of our, like, if we want to talk about sexuality, that's like the first introduction for most people. I would say at least for men. I'm sure for women too.
It's probably true for
Um,
most things. Like you watch a sport before you have a chance to get in the game and play yourself.
yeah, yeah. So, um, yeah, pornography. I would say that it's the only thing it's helped me with is to come up with some fresh positions. But aside from that, I feel like it's taken away more from my sex life than it's given.
Mm. So, what's the definition of pornography? I was thinking about this the other day because I'm freshly back on social media, hardly often at all, but I wanted to see like what people are searching for, and I hit the little magnifying glass icon, and oh my god, the amount of mostly naked women on there is
On where?
unbelievable. Instagram.
Oh, Instagram.
Instagram is pretty
Oh,
sure I'm interested in like fitness and physics and martial arts. So I get weird ancient geometry and then TNA and then a guy breaking bricks with a punch.
yeah. I don't even go over there on Instagram. Actually, a number of years ago, I decided I wasn't going to look at porn anymore, and I noticed that Instagram was a trigger for me. I'd be going through my feed, so I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to watch. I'm going to cut this porn out." By the way, I think pornography. The meaning of it is the graphy part is to write or written, the etymology, and then porno. I think has to do with. I used to know this, but something around prostitution or something like that, or sexuality, and so it's just uh, sexuality in written form or drawn out. That's the etymology. I think you were talking about the meaning of pornography, right?
Yeah, because it's like to me, if there's a still image of a lady in a bikini with the overt purpose of displaying her uh, sexual appeal, isn't that somewhat pornographic? Like, do you have to see an areola for it to count?
Oh, I see what you're
Does there
saying.
need to
What
be?
qualifies?
Yeah, like where's the line really drawn? Because I think you can actually boost your testosterone by seeing uh like I don't know, like Game of Thrones or something like that. You see some maybe like soft core sex and then some hardcore murdering, which is another thing that kind of shocks me is you can watch a guy get brutally murdered on television, but you can't see a nipple.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty
It's
wild.
just
I did.
it's like a
I,
funny place to draw the line. And then you also have Europe where being topless is fairly normal most of the places I've gone.
I think it comes down to, like, man, so many things, but pornography. I think it comes down to the intention for one,
Like how you
and then
use
how
it.
it's received, right? And knowing someone else's intention can be difficult. Sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's difficult.
Mm,
Some like Instagram model may not necessarily be conscious that they're doing that. But I did check the etymology of pornography. It basically porno is prostitute and graph is to write. So
mm.
um, and to address the like the European or we're in I've been to different countries where, they're super conservative and, you got to keep it together. The US is super conservative. And then you go to another country and there's nudity, but it's not sexualized. It's not sexualized
Mm.
nudity. And so, uh, in America, what I notice is uh, uh, that everything is just sexualized. The moment there's a nipple or a labia or whatever it is, it's now become sexual. And when you go to other countries, it's just not the case. And I find that to be really interesting. A lot of people say that that's due to the Protestant church, or I think they said the Protestant church, just whatever church that is very conservative. Is like, oh, you want to cover up, and then that ends up sexualizing nudity versus just nudity being nudity, and then
Mm.
sexuality is sexuality.
Big distinction between nudity and sexuality. I think it makes it very forbidden, and it reminds me of alcohol consumption in the USA versus in Europe as well.
Oh yeah,
If you are, 10 or 8 or 3 in France, you're probably going to be drinking wine with dinner. But then here in America, it's forbidden. So then when that person becomes an adult, that magic age of 18 that is entirely arbitrary, then it's this forbidden fruit, and there's a whole culture around abusing that forbidden thing. So I think the same thing probably is true with sexuality and nudity as well.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then there's a lot of shame around your own nudity, probably too.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely a thing for me at one point. The idea of being seen naked by a bunch of people was not a comfortable feeling.
You
Not a
should hide
comfortable
your
feeling.
shame.
That's right.
You should hide your shame.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I do remember being nude for the first time in front of 100 people and being totally cool with it, sober,
Mhm.
and what a freeing experience that was. I mean, the freedom came before the moment, but when you're doing it, you're like, oh, I'm naked in front of 100 people and nobody cares. Uh, this
No.
is this is fantastic. Everyone thinks everyone's looking at them and creating some type of judgment. Everyone's worried about how big their pecker is. I was like, oh, it's gonna look small. The water's
Right.
cold.
Well, and what you said there is true with a lot of stuff. Everyone thinks that they're being deeply scrutinized, but really people are worried about how they're going to be scrutinized. So they don't have time to focus on your tiny pecker.
No. So I want to go back to the Instagram, and yeah, it's Instagram's a slippery slope because pornography is technically not allowed on there, and yet
Mm,
there's still a lot of pornographic material, highly sexualized, and uh, I remember the day I went through and I unfollowed every model, unfollowed every hot chick that I could
mm,
see, and that was posting bikini pics and stuff like that, because I recognized, oh, there's a trigger. I get bored or frustrated with work. I whip out my phone. I open up Instagram. I start scrolling. Oh, hot chick. Oh, it's time to watch porn. Like
mm.
I know what will distract me from my boredom or my frustration. That'll do it. And
That'll do it.
yeah, I mean, it's a really great way. It's so easy to avoid your feelings in 2023.
It's a
Um,
good drug. I mean, it's an effective drug, I should say.
the problem
I
is
wouldn't
when
call
it's
it long
when
lasting, but it is
no,
fast
it's a short
acting.
lived.
It is fast acting, but short lasting.
Well, yeah, I think one of the problems with pornography with men, and I've seen this with women too, is the necessity
Chasing.
for, well, there's visual stimulation, and then it's almost like a
Just kidding.
race to the finish, right? So you have a finish
Totally.
line, and there's there's basically a destination, right? And it shows
Mm,
up in pornography with money shots and all that kind of stuff.
mm,
um but uh yeah, I think it's rare for people to go, oh, I'm gonna have a nice, I'm gonna make love to myself for the next 45 minutes. Just really gonna like throw on this porn. Most guys make it about 3 or 4 minutes, depending on if they found the video they liked
Right.
and that was gonna
There
do the
just aren't
job.
enough choices. That's the problem.
Dude, there's an infinite amount of porn out there. That's the reality. But I've seen it with women too, where they would need, and I think I remember growing up and hearing, oh, men are visually stimulated, but women aren't. But then as I got older and met more women who had consumed a lot of pornography, I was like, oh, they're visually stimulated too. Like, she needs to watch other people having sex in order to like get to a certain point that she wants to be at. Okay, this is
Mm.
interesting. So yeah, for me, like I said at the beginning of the pornography seems to, for me, have taken away more than it's given me in the world of sexuality.
We should have invited a lady for this one. Probably get the female perspective on this.
I'll just pretend like I'm a woman. Well, you know what? I'm not going to pretend. All right. I'm a woman
So
now.
no different than every other week. So dumb. I can't help it. I don't even know what part of my brain does that.
It's 12 years old. I know that.
It's 12 years old. Uh, well, okay. So I think what you said before, once again, was really important is the chasing the destination and making it all about ejaculating rather than the experience that you're having. So what is gained from watching and what is lost from watching? You can certainly get desensitized to certain stimuli. So then when you go to like actually have sex with another human being, you're like, God, the camera angle is not very good. You're like,
Yeah.
you need like a
Yeah.
whole system of
I'm not
mirrors
really a
to,
POV guy.
you know. uh, so I just think that's kind of funny. And I think it definitely kills your drive to go try to connect with another human being. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
pacifier. I think it's like a pacifier. Like
Yeah.
you won't go looking for tits if you already have a pacifier.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. Also, it creates an unrealistic idea of how women will behave sexually. Uh, and
You
then,
think porno is too tame?
yeah, just not wild enough. And
Yeah,
so, but
most
I've
ladies are
also,
way more wild.
my experience has shown with women who were consuming porn regularly and at a young age. They were adults when I was having sex with them. They they tended to be, much live up to the expectations a little bit, I guess you could say, to what I had learned in from pornography. But um, yeah, I think that the other thing we need to create a distinction between is sexuality and sensuality, because so much of your sexual experience, when combined with a sensual experience, is what really in from what I've done is really the best way to go. And so if you're consuming pornography and masturbating, or you're needing it to be present in the room while you're having sex, then it becomes all sexual, and sensuality leaves the building. And sensuality is, it's touch, taste, smell, it's all these things. And I went through a period of time. I practiced some tantra. I was pretty hardcore about it for about 7 months. No intercourse during that time, and uh, and no ejaculation for about 100 days of it as well. And it was
How
all
old are
about.
you?
This was, I think I was 39.
100 days without ejaculating. That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, it was a thing.
I've made it
Um,
100 minutes a few times.
so that period of time was such a great teacher in that, um, no visual stimulation. There was a lot of me pleasuring myself in the absence of any visual stimulation. So, and also
But no ejaculation.
no ejaculation, and refraining from visualizing in my own head
Mm.
sexual experiences too. So it was like a true sensual experience, and so
So it's
spending
about the senses
it's
rather
about
than
it's about the senses. Yeah,
non-visual, though. Yeah.
right. Yeah, because I mean, if you look, everybody's developed well enough visually to be stimulated. I promise.
Mhm.
The other senses have been left out in the cold. And when you can bring the other senses online for a sexual experience, it's a multiplier of pleasure. So you combine the training your brain to basically immerse itself in your senses and enjoy that, uh, while also not having the destination of ejaculation. Well, when I returned back to sex, it was incredibly enjoyable, like more enjoyable than I could remember it being before.
Mm.
And it was definitely worth doing. I mean, I basically had to I rewired how I approached the whole situation. So I highly recommend that to anybody who wants to go down that road.
I think that's pretty high level. If you can really
That's a
have it
commitment.
be
COVID helped.
about the if you can really have it be about the journey and not the destination, and even just skip the destination for a while,
Hmm.
that you'll learn more actually doing that than anything we talk about today or anything you read. And
That's true.
it'll apply really well to other
Yeah, it's
facets
kind
of
of
your
like,
life too.
I think it could be like fasting, right? You don't have to do 100 days right now. You could
Totally.
do, you could like, hey, just do it. Just go once this week, and then next
Mm.
month, wait 2 weeks, and then in the month after that, do like let yourself go crazy like the rest of the month, and then don't try to go 100 days all at once, or unless you're a really intense human being and that's the kind of shit you like to do, which means we're on the
More
same
power to you.
page, then yeah, go for it.
I would also suggest if you feel like the behavior is compulsive, and we're mostly talking to other fellas here. There are some ladies who listen to what we're talking about, maybe like 20% or something, I think. But
25%.
what's that? 20,
25%.
25 until today.
I think they're going to be extra interested in what we have to say today.
Yeah. I think if you do find yourself compulsively and repeatedly and frequently engaging in uh, racing toward ejaculation with pornography, what I would do, the first thing I would do is just separate those activities and see if they still do the same thing for you. So don't you can try quitting cold turkey. That's usually the way I like to do stuff. But something that will help you learn a little bit more is just watch, but don't do anything. Just watch a pornography and don't whack off, don't ejaculate, and just watch and see if that is really something that you'd like to continue having as part of your routine. And then just do the masturbating and then have without ejaculating like you're talking about. And then you know s- see the difference and distinction between those behaviors, right? Because that the masturbation without ejaculation will get you into that sensuality that you're talking about, and then the watching without doing anything sexual will be probably an enlightening experience about what that audio visual stimuli is really doing for you.
Yeah. So there you go. That's your homework, fellas. Ladies, you can hop in on that too. You want to
Yeah. Make sure
transition
to write
more?
us a letter about it in great detail.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things on my list. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago after the after show, which was AI sex bots, which we're going to get to. But
Hmm.
you also were talking about talk to 100 ladies. Forget the six
Yeah.
pack.
Oh, yeah. Well, so you and I both come from a hyper alpha aggressive fitness uh, origin, basically. You know, in our teens and 20s, we thought the secret to getting women was to be like buff and wealthy. And it doesn't hurt, certainly. But as far as the time investment is concerned, exercise is the absolute worst way to meet and seduce women. The best way is to get many at bats and swing at a lot of pitches. And I don't know why I'm going with sports analogies, but that's just what's happening right now. You just have to ask a lot of ladies, what's going on, and be really interested and try to get to 100 propositions for a date or for whatever. And that'll be a way better return on an investment for having a romance or building a relationship or finding a life partner than any amount of squats and sit ups and that kind of stuff.
True dat. True dat.
Yeah,
I mean, it's way
that's what I
scarier.
think.
Dude, it's
It's
dude. That's why I found myself in the gym at 15 years old pumping iron, is because
yeah.
that was I, that was the dream scenario. I was talking to a guy about this last, like a similar thing in the sauna last night, but
You'll
it's
just
way
be
more.
noticed, and then they'll ask you.
Yeah, exactly. It's way more like if you it's like okay, I could believe you have a choice on what you can believe. I could believe that I need to put myself out there and I need to engage with women and
Hmm.
face rejection and all these things, or I could work out 2 hours a day and they'll just come to me and they won't be able to resist me. They won't be able to resist themselves from coming to me. And so it's like people do this all the time. They know it's a lie, but they would rather believe the lie hoping that it might be true. Like there's a 1%
Hmm.
chance that's true, and it's 99% chance the other thing is true, but the other thing is scary, so I'm not going to do it. And I was talking to a guy about this last night. He was asking me if I thought he should get a business coach. And I was like, well, I don't know. Do you want to get better at business?
Hmm.
he goes, he goes, well, yeah. I was like, well, you know, anytime I want to get better at something, I have a coach. He goes, you got a coach? I go, yeah, I definitely have a coach. Always have a coach. Um, I sometimes there's a few month gap in there here between coaches, but uh, basically he goes, wow, you know what's funny? I've never hired a business coach, but I've had health and fitness coaches and athletic coaches and all this stuff. But
Hmm.
I can tell right now in the conversation, I'm having a block around it. I'm having a block around hiring a business coach. And I go, well, is it because you feel it's a more vulnerable conversation? Like you're gonna have to tell them the money in your bank account, and you're gonna have to like let them know how dumb you are and all that kind of stuff. Like there's like a level of vulnerability that is required to get a business coach than say an athletic coach, even though the ROI is way more correlated to the results, or at least the money you're spending. So but I think the same thing happens with the whole, okay, I could just learn how to relate to women better, or I could work out and make a bunch of money. Like, okay, I'll just fucking work out and make a bunch of money. And, maybe I'll get that trophy trophy wife I was looking for.
That might be not that might not be the happy ending that you're looking for either, but it
No,
is
I
certainly
consider
possible.
myself. I'm about to. When I get married, I'm going to be a trophy husband. That's what I told Ashley.
Nice.
So yeah,
How very masculine of you. It is kind of though. It is kind of. I mean,
I am a
let's
trophy.
not
Come on now, look at this. Come on.
a little dusty, but I think if you shine it up, it could be really nice. It's not the biggest trophy, but it's not about the size either. It kind of it kind of reminds me of the lion. You know, the male lion does two things. It fights and it fucks. It does not hunt. The male lion, it doesn't hunt except when it's an adolescent and it hasn't taken over a pride of its own with female hunters. So, I mean, I'm not telling anyone how to live their life, but that does sound like a pretty good deal.
Oh man, I really want to take on this lion archetype now. I'm gonna go talk to
Yeah.
Ashley about it. I'm like, look, I've decided I'm gonna be the lion. So
Uh-huh.
go out and get our food. Go
Look out
go
for
make the
our
kill.
upcoming ebook, How to Be a Lion.
Just be a lazy animal.
No, but you have to be a savage killer.
You have to be a savage
You
killer.
you
Yeah.
don't have to be out there hunting every day, but you have to be a savage killer because if you go the way of the lion, some other lion can come in and take your pride and take your woman from
Ah,
you.
yeah. The
The
lion game is rough.
the lion game is brutal. Um yeah. Oh man, cuz we could go into all these different animals and their mating rituals and setups and things like that. And and by and large the female is way more savage than the male, just in terms of the number of species where the female is
I think
the killer.
that's. I mean, men generally die younger than women. I think
I,
that's something to
yeah,
be said
but
for that.
not because the women killed and ate us most of the time, but with a
It's
lot
just
of
a slow
animals.
process.
Yeah, it's just they
Just
slowly snuff out your soul. That's that's not how I feel, by the
no,
way.
I don't either. I'm joking.
But like the female cassowary, you know what a cassowary is? It's like that
No.
ostrich looking thing in the Asian jungle with a big
Oh yeah.
cartilage mohawk. So the females are these absolute savages and they choose their mate, and the male actually raises the chicks, believe it or not. So the male will actually watch over the eggs, raise the chicks, and if it's time to mate again, the female will come back and be like, "Hey, male, it's mating time." And the male's like, "No, I don't think so. I'm still raising these chicks from before." And the female's like, "No, you're not. Let them die. This is what's happening right now." And that's what happens. Like that's the level of savageness with that one particular creature. So it's all about maximizing offspring, right? And
Yeah.
that's why also today that women rightfully gravitate toward men who can provide financially because we live in a marketplace where that is way more useful than like how good you are at hitting people with a stick or something. Well,
Right.
it really doesn't matter that much. So it's a different type of alphaness.
Well, yeah, it's all about creating security, and creating security over
Right.
time requires finances. And so, there's financial security, there's emotional security, there's the physical security. These are all
Mm.
these levels of security that we, like as men, provide for women, or can, not always the case, but that is how I see my role. And if Ashley is ever feeling like there's a lack of security, then I quickly go, okay, what can I shift here? And I'm most likely to trigger her emotionally. Like the physical security got handled, but like the emotional security is the thing where I think most men, including myself, have the most room to grow. But
Hmm.
that's also on the woman as well. It's we had a conversation this past weekend where it was like, okay, I see how I triggered you, and uh, I don't think that should necessarily trigger you. Like there's work to do on both ends. Like, okay, I'm learning where your triggers are and your sensitivities, and I want to be aware of that, and I don't want to just blast them all the time because she won't grow if she's constantly feeling insecure about something.
Mm.
But also, like, the invitation is, hey, like, why does this particular thing trigger you? That because that's not my intention of whatever it is that's causing that. So I
Mm.
think there's work to be done on both ends, and this is where very clear communication just becomes necessary.
No doubt. I mean, it reminds me of the difference between exposure and avoidance. There are two ways to
Mm,
resolve things that trigger you or make you afraid or whatever. And if you always choose sometimes choosing avoidance is 100% the correct strategy. If I see a group of guys wearing big hooded sweatshirts walking down the street, I'm going to avoid them. I'm not going
with
to be like,
baseball
you know
bats in
what?
their
I
hand.
feel afraid, but I'm going to go up to them and tell them, I don't mind being, I'm not afraid of you guys. And then I get like killed or something. That's an area where exposure would not really be a good solution, I think. But linguistically, uh, I think exposure is always better because it's always the responsibility of the receiver to decide if they want to be upset by something. And look, people like the drama. That's why we like to watch movies. We like the drama of the. My special lady friend was saying that during a movie we were watching the other day, and I just couldn't stop laughing because I found it so funny. She goes, "I really like the drama of this movie," and I just couldn't stop laughing because that's the whole point of a movie, basically. Like that
Right.
is what a movie is the fact that it has this dramatic effect. But it's always up to the receiver of any message. That doesn't mean you should just be callous and thoughtless, because as the sender, you want to maximize your ability to effectively persuade or manipulate, which are basically the same thing, just one of them has a negative connotation to it, right? Mike and I are trying to manipulate each other and you, the listener, into a more prosperous life. And I have no shame in that reality. So, as the sender of a message, you want to be considerate of what will make someone receive the message best. And at the same time, if someone gets upset by something you say, that's a wound that they have not resolved for themselves yet.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about this is what emotional growth is what can what can I be exposed to? Like, what words can I be exposed to and not be triggered by them?
Mm-hmm.
Because, the Dalai Lama is not walking around getting upset because someone called him a name. He's like,
Uh,
I imagine he immediately thinks he feels sorry for the person or compassion for the person for,
right.
being so damaged that, that's how they're speaking to people or whatever it is. But, so it is, to me, it's like, can I increase my capacity for what's happening in the outside world and stay in my center, right? Stay centered
Mm,
in the seat of consciousness and not getting dragged into an emotion or dragged into a thought loop. And
right.
so if I'm in a partnership with somebody and I know them so well that I do know their triggers, then it growth happens in between comfort and chaos. It doesn't happen in comfort, but it also doesn't happen in chaos. It happens somewhere in the middle. So there's
Mm,
some discomfort, but it's not. It's not so chaotic that you can't even make sense of what's going on. So
Mm.
when I look at how do we build up emotional resilience in a relationship is okay, I've got my responsibility of, I'm not gonna pad the entire conversation for her, but I'm also not gonna bulldoze her. And she's going to also work on noticing that feeling coming up and refraining from giving me that dirty look. But dude, those looks hurt, man.
I guess that's your room to grow then, right?
That is my room to grow.
Y-
I'm like,
You
I'm like,
you're
ah,
like you're like, "Oh
ah.
my god, you don't shower me with love for 10 seconds? I can't handle it."
Dude, dude.
Where am I going to get my validation from?
Oh man. When Ashley's upset
So,
with me, it is not a good look.
well, that's the female warrior embodiment right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel
Uh
my balls suck up inside of me.
So, I was thinking about a couple things there. One, since we're kind of talking about relationships now, you have to be willing to walk away. Otherwise, you just will get steamrolled every time. Like I've seen relationships where um one of the two people will use either tears or loud voice yelling to completely dominate the relationship, and the other person will
Mm.
just try to keep the peace, and they're afraid to leave basically. If it's if you're not allowed to say no, if you're not free to go, it's not a negotiation anymore. It is a hostage situation. It is blackmail. It is not a good situation that you want to be in. So you have to be comfortable enough in your own skin. Otherwise, you become codependent, right? The other thing that I thought of a few minutes ago when you were saying about the ask out 100 women, and then instead what happens is we like go to the gym 2 hours a day for 10 years and hope that one of them will like what they see. It's it's kind of it's kind of like in business, you'll do everything but reach out to a potential customer. You'll do thousands of
Oh my
hours
god.
of R&D, right? It's the same thing. You'll
Dude,
do a
I've
million
watched
hours of
people.
R&D.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
More
and I've
often
done
than
it
not.
myself. Yeah. Oh, 99% of the time, probably. It's not the
Yeah.
easiest thing to do. Like I've done it myself with a few different businesses where it's like, I just need to get it a little bit more correct. I need to get it a little bit tighter. It's not quite right yet. God forbid I talk to a prospect and see if they want it. No, no, no. I gotta live in the creation cave for another 12 months, and you just get stuck because you aren't willing you'll do anything but the one thing you need to do, which is to put out an offer, whether it's to a romantic prospect or a business prospect. And when I see people go balls to the wall with fitness or something like that, I always just kind of wonder now, like, who hurt you? Like, what are you trying to get so tough for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
it's,
I do
it's
know what you
it's
mean.
like it's like who hurt you? I mean, I'm saying this from like living that life too. I'm not talking
I mean,
out
I
of
think
turn
that's
here.
why we think that is because that's what happened to, that's how we coped.
I felt
Like,
like offended if I thought someone was like stronger than me or like tougher than me. Like it would make me
yeah,
uncomfortable. And you know the feeling too. They're like, "Oh my
yeah.
god, that guy who just walked into this room, fuck, that's a real savage. I'm a little pussy.
Well,
Like this isn't cool anymore. I don't
what,
like this feeling. I need to get back to the gym. I got to leave this party right now. I got to go lift more
dude,
weights."
dude. I mean, that was my whole barbell shrug career. Basically, every week hanging out with somebody who was smarter or fitter
To
than
a real
me.
savage.
Just like I had like 7 years of pure insecurity, or was it 6 years? Yeah, I had about 6 years of just maybe that's I always say the podcast was like one of the greatest personal growth tools I ever had access to. And I usually talk about it in the context of I got to be in the same room with really bright people that were able to teach me something, and I got to see how they were being and all that. But the other
Mhm.
side of that is like totally going into rooms where I didn't feel like I belonged. I was there to ask them questions, uh, get invited to do a workout with them beforehand, completely get my ass handed to me. Because obviously I'm interviewing people who are better than me. That's why I'm there. Like we're
Mhm.
interviewing the best. I'm not the best. If I was the best, I probably wouldn't be going around doing interviews. So the it
Dude, that's
like
so awesome.
I'm
It's
just like
like
having this realization in real time. I wanted to share that.
I love watching what's happening right now. I'm so happy because it's like this revelation that this huge success that you were a part of was basically your ego just getting its balls whipped every single week. Just
Really
like
was.
your ego gets like locked into the stockade or the pillory and just has its balls whipped every week. And then
Yeah, it's such a strange thing because it was like I was getting the ego is like would get pumped up. I think most people probably assume that my ego was only getting pumped, right?
Mhm.
But what would happen is like I would I would have that weekly exposure uh where I didn't feel so great. And then I go out into a crowd at the CrossFit Games or Paleo FX or something, and everyone's like, "Oh my God,
Mhm.
Mike Bledsoe, can you sign my shoe?" And I'm like, it's like there's this spectrum of insecurity, and someone you're like,
Mm.
how is this even this world? It is very unstable.
Well, it was is good in a sense because you clearly are exceptional at podcasting and not that exceptional at crossfitting. And neither am I, quite frankly. I mean, uh I think a lot of how people came to know who I was being some sort of an athletic freak show. And that was what I did more of because that's what got me good attention. And you know, I just hoped that some lady would see that. I was afraid to go talk to them, right? So I just wanted them to see the athletic feats of strength and be like, "Wow, that guy is really strong. I think I'll mate with him," or something along those lines. I don't know
And then
exactly.
she would behave in all the ways. Basically, she'd show up. She'd be a hot version of your mom and take care of you. I think that's what.
That sounds more like your dream, but I feel like you might be projecting just a little
I
bit
think
there.
I think that's most men not consciously
Well,
what they're looking for, but
think of the word familiarity, right? We typically want something that's familiar. For I mean, how many couples have you met that look similar when they're not
yeah,
related? Isn't that
yeah,
an interesting one?
for sure, for
Does that
sure.
just mean they had a good mom or something? And if
Yeah.
someone goes for something completely unfamiliar, does that mean they had a bad mom?
No,
I'm not I'm overgeneralizing, but I think it's kind of a funny
I'm in an
comment.
interesting situation to comment on this because my ex-wife was, I would say, resembled me way more than my fiance does now, right?
Right.
Like like my ethnicity, we track it back. It's Irish, Scottish, German, Swedish,
Mhm.
and my ex-wife was, like she had Scottish in her and other things. Like, okay, there's like
Mhm.
similar color skin pigment and all this.
You could have been from the same village. Yeah.
Same village maybe. And then but my fiance, like Nicaragua, Mexico, Czechoslovakia, that's the background. Very different. And the I would say my ex-wife was very familiar to me, but that was not the right answer basically, for me.
Yeah.
And moving into a place where it's like, oh, I was when I got married, I was seeking comfort. I was seeking comfort and agreeability. And over time that there was like we were like perfectly matched at the time because I wasn't going to date somebody or be with somebody who made me feel uncomfortable or challenged me. Uh,
Hmm.
and so I had to, that relationship helped me grow to be able to be in a place where I could have the relationship I have now.
Yeah.
Even though
I was
it's
just,
like a sad, it's a sad, hard process.
I was just thinking of that too. If you have this level of stability at home, it allows you to stretch more in other areas. And I've talked to a lot of people at the gym over the years, people who have gotten married, people who have gotten divorced, and there's a sense of safety that a lot of people get when they get married that lets them have a greater foundation to jump from. It's like the difference between jumping off of a solid platform or a canoe or something like that.
Yeah.
The more stable that home life is, the more you can jump out and stretch. And then, depending on where you are in your life, you might want or need something different so that you can grow appropriately. And then when
Yeah.
people get divorced, it's a totally different thing. Like the whole foundation has been stripped away, and it's this period of really intense potential. There's all this potential energy. There's hardly any kinetic energy, but there's all this potential energy that's about to get released. It's like a keg of dynamite. Foundation's gone, everything's gone. Usually people go try to get in shape first thing right after getting divorced.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so,
How
so
many
that they can
divorcees have
feel
you trained?
almost exclusively. I mean, no, not exclusively, but a lot, a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
Um, it's an interesting thing. Um, the beginning of that stability that you get from a relationship, and then the end of that stability, which is a big potentiator for change, especially stripping things away, because people usually have a difficulty cutting away the pieces of themselves that they'd like to change. It's a little bit harder than adding something new, is taking away something that's been there a long time.
Always more difficult.
Mm.
Always more difficult.
But you can
Well,
only
not always,
sharpen
but
by removing
mostly.
material.
True that. True that.
Mm.
You ready to wrap? We're going. We decided to go
Yeah,
short today.
yeah. I don't.
It's an
Other
hour
than
short for us.
the yeah, it's a little short for us. Still about an hour. This was fun. I'm sure I'll think of a ton of other stuff as soon as we pop off the air. But consider what is normal in our culture with regard to sex and sensuality, nudity, the distinction between ejaculation and masturbation and pornography, and how those all are distinct and separate things. Consider where you may have picked up some secondhand shame about your own sexuality and why you might need to hide that. What things you might be avoiding to an extent, like Mike and I were talking about, where you'll spend, thousands and thousands of hours building yourself up to avoid the one thing you have to do, which is to go talk to a lady. And then, I think that's it. Actually, I think that's it. Full disclosure, open communication will solve basically any relationship problem that you have. And if it's not solvable by that, then you have to be willing to walk away. Otherwise, you will be someone's slave, which is bad. Unless you're into that shit, of course. In which case, uh, go with God.
I know somebody. I know several people who like that. So
Are you
yeah,
one of those people?
I not all the time, but every once in a while.
Okay,
Don't mind.
fair enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it
I
feels good to give, doesn't it?
what do you mean to give?
It feels good to give.
Yeah, it feels good to give. It feels good to
Yeah,
receive. All of it.
yeah, yeah. All of
Uh
it.
so I'm glad we got to share our sex lives. I think I shared more personal stories, but next week Max is going to tell us about how he lost his virginity. So that's the
Wow,
hook. Yeah.
cool. Wow, awesome.
All right, y'all. See you next time. Make sure to go to maxshank.com. Check out everything Max got going on, and give me a follow on Instagram. Hit me up. Let me know what you think of the conversation at Mike_Bledsoe. Later, y'all.
Later. Bye.